All right, good evening, everybody. How's it going?
Well,
Good. Well, welcome to Firefast Rentals. I know you guys are like, why is Ritz on stage? This is fair as night, but she's on vacation. So I was like, yeah, I'll fill in for you. So I'm going to be talking about basically how to screen your long-term tenants, okay? And before I get into that real quick, we're going to go, as long as my computer's working. There we go. All right. You guys probably know by now that we have a couple sponsors. If you're a sponsor, come in and raise your hand, please. We got Evan in the back. Thought Lee was here. Is he hiding back in the room? Maybe he's in the restroom.
Yes.
Is he? All right. Well, Lee's our solar guy as well. We appreciate all of our sponsors. Again, if you need any of their services, all we ask is that you give them a shot first. Okay? You're under no obligation to use their services, but please, there's Lee. Let's give him a round of applause. And so check them out. You can go to the website, iereic.org/sponsors. You can scan that code or just search sponsors IEREIC online. It should take you right to them. But we got design sponsors, solar, security systems. The club's security system here is actually from Lee as well. So great people, great sponsors. Really appreciate all of them. So please check them out if you need anything, okay? And for those of you that don't know me, my name's Rich. I run this here club and founded this here fire center. Also do a lot more other things, but tonight I'm going to focus on longest term rentals, okay? I said longest because ideally you're going to screen for people that are going to last hopefully a lifetime. I can't guarantee that, but the longer the better. I did try, I'm getting ahead of myself here, so just real quick, you guys are being filmed, okay? There are cameras in the thing. This is your warning that if you don't want to be on camera, if you're supposed to be somewhere else and your wife thinks you're not, you might want to leave, okay? Yeah, if not, we got a whole box of sunglasses if you need to go incognito. Okay, we got hats too, $30 on sale. If you need to be for something called privacy, So, also, I am not an attorney. Okay, all of the opinions I'm going to express here tonight are just my opinion. I'm not a property manager. I'm not a realtor. I'm not a professional in any way. I'm just an idiot real estate investor. Okay. My background here: I've been a housing provider since 2020. I bought my first house the week after they closed Disneyland. It was a duplex. I basically lived in the bottom unit and rented out the top unit. So I lived in the bottom unit for free and rented out the top unit that covered all the bills, the mortgage, all the utilities and everything like that. I refinanced that one a year later, bought a triplex, did the same thing, lived in one unit, rented out the other two, except this time I was living there for free and I cash flowed $500 a month. So that was cool. And then I just kept buying from there. Right now I have 11 doors. They're all long-term rentals. I did do short-term and mid-term rentals for a little while, decided they weren't for me. I was way too damn busy with this place to be dealing with people calling me all the time, like why they couldn't get in the front door or something like that. So I gave up the short-term rental game. As far as my background, I used to be outside sales for James Hardy. Those of you used Hardy Backer, anybody know what that is? Wonderboard, Durock. If you ever tile down in your house and you don't have cement, you use this fancy thing called a cement board. It's like a 15 square foot thing, a cement board. It weighs a ton, but it makes it so that you don't, regret putting tile down on wood later. So I sold that stuff. I called it glorified cement for 8 years. I used to have a territory of, at one time, all the way from Santa Barbara, California, all the way over to El Paso, Texas. And when they started making me go to El Paso, that's when I was no longer happy with my job. So those of you from El Paso, I'm sorry. I did go to ASU for my bullshit degree in global business, and I was a stage tech through high school at the theater at Servite in Anaheim. So that's where I learned how to do all these lights and everything and sound, and I'm not great at it, but it gets the job done. So, and then some pictures of me just going through things. I like to travel, got an RV that me and my girlfriend Caitlin took across all the way up to Glacier National Park. Or not Glacier, sorry, Yellowstone, last summer. I think this summer we're going to try and go up the coast of California. So that'll be fun. Also like to travel a bit in Greece and stuff like that too. So current projects wise, I'm got 7 flips in a mobile home park all going at the same time. We finished that. I'm doing final walks this week, and we did all of those in 8 weeks. 8 weeks. So from nothing to full flips, we got about another week left of flooring. And then we got to figure out how to put them on the market without dumping them all on the market at once. So we'll see how that goes. But and that is a club venture as well. Mr. Carl over here is one of my partners. And the rest of them aren't here. They're all spending their money that they haven't made yet, apparently. So also flipping one mobile home up in Crestline at the moment, and I'm about to buy another one in Hemet. I just actually signed my loan docs about 2 hours ago for a refi on that gray house right there, or the black house in the middle. That one ended up working out pretty well. And I did the refi with somebody in this club also. And what else is on there? So that's a bunch of all the mobile homes, and then that bottom left one is the one I'm doing in Crestline right now. And the one in the top left is my house in Running Springs that I bought sub 2 about 3 months ago. And now I've decided to turn it into a triplex via ADUs. So instead of breaking even on it and just making it an equity play, I'm going to dump probably about $120,000 by the time it's all done. But I'll cash flow like $1,400 a month after all that. So it's worth it. And then I'll probably be able to get out of the sub 2 loan, get some money back. So we'll see how that goes. And I'm in the process of permitting all of the non-conforming multi-units that I have. So I am working with a company that's doing all the permitting and stuff for me like that. So it's a little bit of a process. I didn't really think that it was going to be quite this difficult, but the county, you know how it goes, dealing with our building permits. Yes, sir.
How much did that cost, or is it like an hourly thing, or did you get like a quote on it?
For the permits, or?
The entire process to go take care of it.
So I haven't finished that process yet. It's probably going to be about, it was $3,000 per property for plans, because they're not really designing anything, they're just going in and scanning everything in once and doing the calculations and whatnot for structural calculations. They're not actually designing the units because they're already existing. Okay, for the ones that are not existing, those are a little bit more. Those are like $3,000 a unit, and then so I mean, all in all, for the Running Springs one, for all the permits and designs and everything, it'll probably be about 12. So to legalize the other ones, they'll probably be about 5 each house, something like that. But then they'll be real. I'll be able to, show on paper to lenders and be able to leverage them a little bit better than I am right now. Because right now they're non-conforming, so they still show up as a single family. Okay, so it wasn't a problem to buy it. I used bank financing, but now that they're worth, I bought one for like $250, and things are worth over $5 now. But I can't really pull anything out of it because everybody that looks at it sees a 2-bedroom, 1-bath single family. They don't see a triplex. So, and all right. And run this club, okay? So in my spare time. All right, so real quick, show of hands. Who has long-term rentals? Okay, cool, about half the room. Keep your hand up if you self-manage them. Okay? Just trying to get an idea of who I'm talking to here. Who wants to own rentals? I'm assuming hopefully all of you if you're here. Okay, who wants to self-manage? About half of you. Okay, so the other half of you are thinking about hiring a property manager. Okay? Who wants to hire a property manager? It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. We'll talk about it. Okay, so a couple things before I get into this. So I am going to try and stick to as far as screening for residents. Okay? I'm not going to get too much into what happens after you lease them up. Okay? I'm pretty much going to stop at the lease up tonight. Okay, all the systems and like how they pay rent and how you deal with things that go wrong, and we can talk about that if we have some time for questions afterwards. But I'm really going to try and focus on just going from you have a vacancy to filling that vacancy and trying to limit your problems for the future in that process. Okay, I kind of equate it. So I used to be a recruiter for many years. I did like senior level tech recruiting, all the people that make your phones and that kind of stuff, and I kind of put the system together based off of stuff that I learned from John Schaub and David Tilney. Also, other people in the room like Andy and Evan that have been landlords for a while, housing providers for a while. And also, for those of you that know Matt Tandy, professional property manager that I call regularly if I have some kind of legal question, because the laws are always changing. So even if you don't end up hiring a property manager, it's still good to know one to be able to bounce questions off, because every once in a while you might get too busy and you throw them one of your units for a little while or whatever. But I am, again, trying to just stick to that and how I basically looked at it as, I'm getting ahead of myself, sorry. So what I call like a resident mindset, okay? And I do run the mindset focus group on the fourth Wednesdays, so I'm gonna kind of bring that in here a little bit. So when you think of a resident or a tenant, who, like, there's no wrong answer here, but like who's excited about that? One person, okay? Like, does the process excite you, or does it like terrify you? Like the process of finding a resident. Like, does it like, oh man, this is gonna be a slog, or is it like, are you excited about it? Stressed? Excited? Okay. So my goal here today is to get you to be excited about it, okay, and look at it from a different perspective of not so much like, oh, I got to do all this grind and all this work, and I got to go through these 1,000 people emailing me, and all that stuff. I want you to be excited, and part of that is changing your mindset to that. If you look at your residents as employees, okay, you don't look at them as just, you know, somebody that's going to be sitting in your house paying you rent, okay. So it's a mindset shift of that they work for you. So if you were gonna, and this is again, I used to be a recruiter, so I would go through resumes and match resumes to job descriptions and go through people and interview people and talk to people. That was my job all day long. I sat on the phone for 4 hours a day. So if you look at them as employees and that you're trying to get the best employee to work for you and take care of your house, and you think of it that way versus just a tenant, you might, you know, this all might make a little bit more sense, okay, and excite you a little bit more, okay? Also them as assets, okay? Because you may think that the number one asset is your house, because that's the one that you see there on paper, but who's taking care of your house? Andy's shaking his head no. Who's taking care of your houses, Andy?
Well, obviously not me.
Obviously not Andy, because he's never there.
The manager I hired better be doing it, because that's part of his job, is occupying that house.
Yeah, yeah. So your residents are really your biggest assets, because if you get a bad resident, your house is going to be worth less. Okay, if you get a good resident, they're going to take care of it. They're going to stay a long time and make your house worth it, so they don't have to put a bunch of money in, right? Okay. Also, they are solutions, or they can be solutions. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they cause the problem. Okay, but they are also solutions. Okay, it's not like if you put, let's say who has employees? Anybody here have employees other than residents? Okay, own a business or people who work under you? Okay, few of you. If there's a problem, what do you want them to do for the most part? Solve it. Think for themselves. Anything else? Solve it, thinks for themselves, this probably covers it. Okay, so work as a team, that's a good one.
Notify me if there's a bigger issue.
Notify you if there's a bigger issue, you can't solve it. Okay? All good, all good. So, yes, to all of those. If, you know, they can fix a toilet fairly easily, and they can do it without getting you involved, or they can change a light bulb, or shovel snow, clear the driveway, take out the trash. You know, why not? Some people, that terrifies people, okay, to let them touch anything. Like, you can't change a light bulb, you're gonna blow the house up. But people change light bulbs all the time. Now, if they're built-in, lights, and they can't change the light bulb, and you don't want them to rewire the light, okay, I can see that. I don't let people rewire my electrical systems, okay? Yes, sir?
There's some tenants you don't want to have changed light bulbs.
There are some tenants you don't want to have changed light bulbs. That's probably true. And what we're trying to do here too is we want to, if we can, we want to put those residents in that do. if that makes sense. Okay? And yes,
My dad wouldn't call the landlord for anything, like nothing. We lived in that house for 20 years, pretty much paid off their mortgage. Water heaters, floor replacements, carpet, everything. They didn't have to do anything when we moved.
yeah. I was a tenant for a long time. What's that?
No,
No,
he
it
didn't ask
says,
for anything.
is
He
he
didn't-
still looking for a house to live in?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I was a tenant for a while. The only reason I fixed everything and didn't call my landlord because I was hiding 2 pit bulls. So, so I didn't call him for anything because I didn't want him to find out about my dogs. So, but we're going to talk about that because nobody hides dogs from me. I learned. I know the tricks. So, we're going to talk about that. All right. So, again, look at them as solutions, okay? They can solve problems for you. They can look at things. I have now 2 tenants that have stopped a water leak from being multi-$1,000 problems to being costing $300-$400. 2 pipes burst with bubbles growing out of the ceilings, and they called me, thankfully, okay? But that's part of setting the expectations and everything and being a, friendly, I say fair but stern. That's kind of my goal. I like to provide quality housing with rules that are fair, but they're stern. I don't really take a lot of crap from anybody, and everyone's pretty much on the same plane. But you call me and ask me if you can break the rule temporarily, the answer is no. And I lay it all out for them. We're going to talk about this more, but in the lease up, I lay it all out. It's not something that I'll go into that later. And Anna, I keep meaning to ask you, I'm sorry I'm putting you on blast here. I can't have you live streaming from here, okay? Thank you. You guys are allowed to take pictures and recordings, everything you want. You just can't be recording the entire thing, okay? And what also makes it is great screening, okay? You have to want to do this stuff up front, okay? If you're thinking you're going to be the greatest landlord, the easiest landlord, and you're just going to take the first person that wants your house, you're going to have a bad day, okay? Someday you're going to have a bad day. It might be shit. It's probably going to be sooner rather than later, okay? So you need to be able to screen. You need to take screening very, very seriously and treat everybody that is wanting to live in your house as your employee. Would you want to have this person working for you? That's what you need to be asking yourself, okay? Now, what makes a good candidate? Whoa. Calm down. That wasn't all supposed to pop up immediately, but now that it is. Okay, so obviously, what makes a good candidate? They're going to meet the requirements, right? They got to at least meet the minimum, depending on activity, okay? If you have certain requirements and you're not getting any interest, well, you might have to adjust a little bit. But what else? Again, this wasn't supposed to pop up right this second, but what would you expect from an employee? Or expect of yourself if you were looking at yourself being a good employee? Yes, Andy?
Got to be easy to work with, or you're not staying in my house.
You got to be easy to work with, or you're not staying in Andy's house. Responsible. Yep. Anything else? Follow directions.
Pay on time.
Communications, pay on time. Being able to read's a big one for me. Okay, I feel like a lot of people don't read the description, and sometimes I'm like, well, how you plan on reading the lease? Okay, so, but follows up, punctuality, these are all big things. Okay, it's something I would look at in a candidate if I was going to hire somebody. It's something that I absolutely look for in residents. Okay, so if they come and look at the place, okay, let's say we get to that part, and this has happened. I have people that have walked right in, they take like one quick peek, they walk to the end of the house, they walk back out, and they say, great, I'll take it. And I'm like, why? You didn't even look at it. Did you even see the bathroom? Like, you just ran right in and ran right out. And, later as we got down the process, it became very evident that, she didn't care where she lives. She just needed they just needed somebody to just bypass that she wouldn't do her income verification properly. So we'll get more into that later. But ask questions, shows interest. Like the people, if you really want a job, okay, do you just say, yeah, sir, give me the job? Or do you ask things like, when do I come into work? Or like, what's the culture like? Or, how do you guys handle this situation? Or, you ask questions. If you generally want something, you will ask questions, right? Anybody disagree? Okay. Follow up, punctuality, that kind of stuff. Like I usually, when we're talking back and forth and, it's been a week since I last heard from them. We set up something maybe a week from now for a showing. I'm expecting a text that morning that says, hey, I'm on my way up. And now I don't get it from everybody. That is one of the things now, if I don't get it, I used to not do it. I used to not text anybody. And then I kept getting no-showed, so I had to alter that one a little bit. But the people that do follow up, I mean, they've already made it. Like, they'd have to do something really stupid when they show up and just be like really rude or something. But generally the people that are gonna, text you and show that kind of follow-up and interest from the start are the ones that are probably gonna make it, towards the end. They have a better shot, I guess. Okay, anything else? Any other good candidate, good residents that you like to see from people? Any of the landlords in the room? Housing providers? Andy?
Has the required skill sets.
Has the required skill sets. And I'm sure you're meaning like
Toolbox.
a toolbox and hammers. We're gonna talk about that. I'm not quite as gung-ho about people bringing hammers to my units, but some people are. Okay, well, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Okay. Now, I want you guys to remember something as far as the law in California. Okay, in California, you are supposed to, the first qualified applicant. Okay, the first qualified applicant to complete the entire screening process. Okay, the entire screening process. Okay, so if you want to make sure the best resident gets to the end of that screening process, that's how my system is set up. Okay, and that's I'm going to leave it at that. Okay, so just remember that you can't have somebody fill out your entire thing and then they meet the requirements and you tell them no. Okay, if 3 people are online and that first one gets there and he's first, you're supposed to legally give it to that person. Okay, just keep that in mind.
When does your screening process end?
Process end?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
When does your screening process?
Oh, screening. I thought you said scream. I was like, what?
You said to complete the entire process. When does
We're going to get into that. Okay, so what do? We screen. Okay? I don't make it just here. Do this whole thing and then I'll look at it. Okay? I have multi-steps that are ensuring that I'm whittling the candidates down. And again, whether you're in sales or whatever, this is sales, this is recruiting, okay? Whether you're selling stuff or you're looking for deals, where's my Fire Fast people at? The funnel. Thank you, Carl. The funnel. Okay, you got to fill that thing, and you're whittling it down to a deal. In this case, you're whittling it down to a resident that you want to hire. Okay, and you're going to screen. You're going to have multi-step processes to make this happen. Okay. Of course, the easiest one is your minimum requirements. Okay, so a gross income of 2.5 to 3 times the rent is what I do, and that seems kind of low for some people maybe. The 2.5 times the rent is on the properties that I pay utilities on. Okay, so if I'm paying utilities, I do 2.5 because I feel like the rent's higher than it normally would be. It would be about $200 less per unit on those. So I do 2.5 on that income if I'm paying the utilities. If it's on the houses that I'm not, where they're paying all the utilities, I do 3 times. Okay, which is going to be probably most of you, unless you're doing ADUs without separate meters and stuff like that. Now, there are different ways to do billing and ratio billing systems for utilities and all that stuff where you can charge them still for utilities. I've found for myself, it's easier for me to just pay them and have different stuff in my lease to protect me from getting screwed on utilities, okay? But I'm not gonna go into all that tonight, okay? I'm just putting that out there. So I've seen people go all the way as 4 or 5 times the rent, okay? It depends on really what you want and what your patience and really how long you're willing to have that unit vacant to find that perfect employee, okay? But that's what I do. Residents to maintain their own personal renter's insurance. I put this on all of the applications. I do make it optional. I make them sign a very specific thing in the lease that they have to sign another signature, like right next to this, basically like insurance affidavit. If they do have a dog, which I'll explain later. If they have a dog, I require them to get actual like liability renter's insurance. Okay, but if they don't have a dog, I make it very clear that my insurance is not going to pay for anything, and I make them sign a form that says that. Okay, I've been told by other people and professional landlords and stuff that could be a whatever. It's up to you guys. Really your risk tolerance is all you. Again, I'm just an idiot. So, all right. And I do a 630 minimum credit score. Okay, I used to do like a 650. I think at some point I did a 700. I've kind of come down because honestly, I wasn't really getting great candidates at 700. They'd have a great credit score, but they were, their jobs weren't as good or the credit was really new. And I didn't really feel like it was getting me to where I wanted. I wanted to have a good funnel of people to, send through it. And I felt like 630 was kind of the cutoff where if you're below a 630, you're messing something up. If you're above 630, you're okay. Okay, there's might be like, maybe you were late, but you've kind of taken care of it and your credit's usually going on the up. I still look at the credit, that is the minimum credit score, but I do look at their credit score, okay, or their credit report to see what's going on, And again, there's caveats to some of this stuff, but that's the minimum, okay? And then I don't allow any smoking cigarettes, smoking anything, period. In the house, vaping is okay, but I'd really, a lot of my stuff's multi-units, so if I can, if I can steer people away from that, it's easier, but you can't block it completely. It's just, and a lot of people, they're smart, they won't put it on their app. And by that time, that's a you decision. That's the fair but stern kind of thing. The guy has a cigarette every once in a while, but he's a great resident otherwise. That's a decide for yourself. Okay. Pet policy, up to 2 pets allowed. I don't have any breed restrictions. Again, used to be a tenant. Yes, sir.
What is your
My insurance. My insurance says nothing about dog breeds. I've checked.
So you don't have hormones?
Nope. No, I don't pay those astronomical rates. At least in the mountains. Okay, so I don't do any breed restrictions. Okay, regardless of your feelings of dog breeds or whatever. I used to have 2 pit bulls. It was a pain in the ass to find somewhere to live with 2 pit bulls. I didn't know that before I got the 2 pit bulls. Okay, but I did. I love them, and I was, one time it was very hard to find housing for them. So when I became a housing provider, that was my number one thing. I wanted to provide housing for people with dogs and people that had aggressive breeds that, back then, I'm not going to get into a debate about dog breeds. Back then, like, my dogs were the most absolutely behaved dogs you'd ever meet. And meanwhile, it was everybody else's non-aggressive breeds dog that were causing all the problems. Okay, so as a housing provider now, I use that lens to look at people's animals, and as long as we're going to go into screening for pets here in a little bit, but as long as they meet the requirements and all that stuff, I'm pretty open. I'm just super strict about my pet policy. Okay, I don't mess around. I have fines that if I find an animal in there, even after they move out, it's pretty late in there. Okay, and I go through it. It's a whole thing. They sign. We're going to talk about it in lease up. Okay. So no breed restrictions, which I feel actually opens up because I feel like every dog in the world is like half pit bull. So nowadays, or Rottweiler, or whatever, German Shepherd, or Husky. I don't think Huskies are considered dangerous, but they're annoying as hell. Sorry if you have a Husky. I love Huskies, but they're annoying. Yeah, no breed restrictions. Additional fees and separate apps. So I have high security deposits. I have high pet administration fees. Okay, if you want an animal or a dog in my units, you pay for them. Okay, but you have the security of knowing that I'm going to take care of the place. Your dog is welcomed, and you will never be having to worry about having that animal in your house, as long as you're following the rules. Okay, so and again, they require an additional rental insurance policy. So that's the one I do require to have some kind of liability insurance. It's usually like $1 million, and they have to name me as additional insured. Yes, sir.
Emotional support to animals?
Emotional support. We'll go into that. So you don't have a choice with emotional support or service dogs, animals of any kind, Typically that's going to be a cat, a dog. The only other one that's actually named is a miniature horse. Okay, so usually those three are the common ones, but people can, you can have a service. I think the only thing that you can have a service goat. I mean, it's with a pet policy and with any of these policies, you have to, in the state of California, your screening and your requirements and everything have to be reasonable. Okay, so if it's unreasonable for you to have an elephant, a service elephant, in your house, okay, there's these caveats. So it has to be reasonable. Again, the accommodations and the things that you're being, if somebody in the unit, like let's say it's a triplex. So one of my triplexes has a shared heating system. Okay, it's zoned. Everybody controls their own set. It's all a central unit, but everybody has their own zones that they can control their temperature in their unit. Okay, but that means though, is all the units are interconnected as far as airflow. Okay, so they all pull air. They all have their own intakes, but the system does share at some point the air from the individual units. Okay, so if I had, if somebody was deathly allergic to cats in one unit, okay, I can't have two service cats in another unit, okay, because now it's not a reasonable request because what am I going to do? Kick that person out so that this person can live there? So, okay, so that it's got to be reasonable. All right. So, again, with the funnel, my idea, same thing with we used to do this in recruiting. We called it pre-screening. Okay, so same thing with housing, with sales, is that you're pre-closing. Okay, so you want to ask questions. You want to ask questions so that you don't waste time on people at the very end of the process to find out that they were never a fit from the very beginning. Okay, or they weren't serious about the job from the very beginning. Or they really weren't going to buy whatever you're selling because you didn't ask the right questions at the beginning. You might get to the end and they're like, oh no, I didn't want to buy right now. I was thinking like 5 years from now. But you never asked when they were interested in purchasing. Okay? So pre-screening, and as far as residents go, I put this in the description. Okay? I put it in the description. I put it very visible in my description. And I say, please provide your estimated credit score and number of vehicles when inquiring. Okay? Now the people that answer that question when they contact me, guess what? What happens?
They go ahead and get you. Checks out.
Tell the truth or they lie?
It checks out.
It checks out? Thought you were going to say something.
Yeah, they go to the head of your queue.
They go to the head of the queue. Exactly. They can read. They can read. Maybe they'll even be able to read a lease contract. But at least they can read the few lines of the description that I have. Okay? So they go to the top immediately. Like, holy crap, you were interested in this enough that you weren't just scrolling through Zillow, clicking apply, and see whatever stuck. Okay? So I put something in there like that. Okay? And these are typically the responses that I get. Okay? Even though I put that in there. Okay? And it doesn't work all the time. Okay, most of the time it actually doesn't. Okay, but I put it in there anyways because it makes me feel better for the people that actually read it. Okay, but so initially a lot of the responses I get, I would like to schedule a tour. Would any of these dates work? A lot of them are automated things from Zillow. I'll just get the about me thing, and I didn't go into this, but typically I pretty much just list everything on Zillow, which sends it out to hot pads and some other things. I pay for the $30 premium, whether it actually gets you anywhere or not, but I write it off as a listing, expense. So I just do it. I don't know if it actually does anything or not. Couldn't tell you, but that's what I do. So is this home still available? I'd like to submit applications. When is this unit available? Blah, blah, blah. Hello, will you be available tomorrow morning? I'm currently a month-to-month lease, 1 bed. I'm looking for a place. I'm ready to move in ASAP. I'm interested in this rental, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So what I'm trying to save you guys from is everybody's life story up front. Okay? Because you don't even know if they're qualified yet. They're going to send you this whole thing. You'll be like, oh, you want to move in tomorrow? It's your dog. What kind of dog do you have? Da, 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 da. And then you don't even know if they meet your credit score requirement. Okay? And if you're not busy enough that you maybe want to just have conversation with strangers, be my guest. Okay? Like, go right ahead. Okay? But I don't have time to sit there with each individual person and trying to figure out, So I skip to the next part. Okay? And I asked them, again, one question, which is slightly different from my other one. Hi, can you first confirm your estimated credit score and monthly gross income, please? Let's cut the BS, get to the part that matters. Are you qualified for this house or not? Okay? That might make me sound heartless, that I don't care what kind of dog they have, or not yet. I do care what kind of dog they have, eventually, okay? Or if they have a dog. But right this second, that's all I want to know. Do you meet the credit and income requirements? If you don't, sorry. If they're close, I will tell them, hey, you're close. If they don't, most of the time they don't even respond. Okay, probably about 80% of the people don't even respond to this message. So it weeds out the 80% of the looky-loos that aren't even interested, or they were just scrolling through Zillow, or they know they don't meet the requirements, and they're just hoping that you're not going to check. Okay? So the people that do respond to that, if they meet the requirements, they go to step 2, which is a showing. Or I give them the option of applying. Okay, we're going to go to that in a second. If they don't, it's a no. Okay? If they're way off, it's a no. If it's close, I will tell them, hey, you know what, you're close, but you're not quite there. As of right now, I haven't, if I open up the requirements, if I'm not able to find someone and I open up the requirements later, I'll get back to you. Okay? But you are allowed to deny people based on credit and income. Okay? Those are not protected classes. Okay? But you can't deny somebody because, some other reason. Okay? Race, color, gender, whatever. Like, you cannot just say, oh, I'm only looking for males. Sorry, you're a female. Absolutely not. Okay? But you can deny people for credit and monthly income. Okay? So, sorry, if they don't meet the requirements, don't show it to them. Okay, again? And again, this is assuming a lot of activity here. Okay? If your funnel's filling up real quick, you can afford to be picky. Okay? And that's why the people that are close, I don't just immediately say no. The people that are never going to make it, that I'm never going to rent to, they go away. Okay? But the people that are close, you still want to not completely crush them. Okay? Just keep them in the back burner for now. Yes?
So is that kind of your way of weeding out the ones that you don't want? Like you said, the first person that qualifies, you technically have to take them, but if you don't give them an opportunity to start the process, then...
Exactly, because you're weeding out, basically trying to get to the end with the person that is most qualified, okay, that you want. Yes, Michelle.
A lot of people put the required credit score and security.
Ellie, can we get the mics up? Sorry.
A lot of people put the credit score requirements and the income requirements in the actual ad. How come you don't?
A lot of people, no, I do. A lot of people, she was asking, a lot of people put in the ad, the requirements. I absolutely do. That's why I asked that question to see if they even read it, because most of the time, it's just a way to filter out a lot of people. Okay? Great.
How are you figuring out the price you want to offer the unit for?
How do I set price?
Yeah, because if you don't have the right price, you won't get the qualified leads.
I didn't put that in here because I was trying to stick to tenants, but in my town, I just know the pricing. If I still will look at what's on the market, I'm mostly up in the mountains in Crestline, okay? So I will absolutely, though, every single time go to Zillow and see what is actually rented for right now. And I will look at them and say, well, that one's nicer, this one's not as nice, and if I think I can get a little bit more, I might go a little bit higher to try it out. But if I don't have multiple responses or people asking for showings within a week or so, I'm dropping it. Yes, sir.
Don't skip past that quite so quick.
Which part?
You know the rent in your market, in your little neighborhood of One Mountain, And everyone in this room who's looking at these great rentals in Ohio needs to hear that. You know what the rents are in your neighborhood. It's not a challenge for you because you know your rents.
Yeah.
So do this business in your own town.
Yeah, he's right. He's right. Like like I said, I'll go look and see if I can maybe push it up a little bit, because obviously if I can get a little bit more rent, I would like that. Some people have strategies where they'll list it, they'll figure out, I think John Schaub's one of them, he'll constantly, he'll sometimes price his properties a little bit below market to try and find a better resident. that's a strategy too. Okay. Generally I want to be showing it that following weekend from when I list. If I'm not, I probably went a little high. Okay, and I'll probably drop it accordingly. And you want to ideally you got people coming into this funnel pretty quickly. Okay, you got people coming in, and you don't want to just get the first guy that applies that meets your requirements. They sound like the perfect fit. I can't tell you how many times the perfect fit just evaporates as soon as you meet them. Okay, like they sounded great in texting, they get in there and it's just not. Okay, or they didn't tell you that they have 14 dogs until they're like, oh yeah, he likes me now. Now I can tell him no. So, all right. So you want multiple people, a lot of people. Okay. Okay. Application process 1. And again, so I've now talked to people. Okay, and I've either set up an appointment for showings. Okay, so once they pass the check. Okay, before I get to this part, once they pass the check. Okay, whether they meet the income and they meet the credit. Okay, they're okay to see it. Okay, so what I do from there is I will send them a message or call them or whatever, and just say something like, hey, when are you available to see it? And then we'll go through that process. We'll set up a showing, and I will give them the option of, if you want to apply before, I usually say something like, hey, I have a lot of interest. If you want to jump ahead of the pack, get me an application now, that would help, okay? Because the more information you can have before you actually meet them, the better, okay? Because then you have a chance to talk to them about it a little bit more, see them in person, see what the reaction's like, so you can talk to them a little bit about the application, okay? Same thing in if you're going to buy a house, okay? The more information you can go into that sitting down with that seller, the better position you're going to be in to make a deal, okay? So I give them the option. I would say about 30% of people actually do it, or they'll apply, okay? A lot of times I do accept Zillow applications automatically. I don't prefer them. If the person, and I'll go into this a little bit more later, but I really, really strive to not let people do the Zillow app. If people just are applying, because Zillow lets you apply to one house, and then they let you apply to any other houses you want for the next 30 days after you pay that one application fee. So a lot of people just will not even be interested. They'll just go click, 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 and just apply to everything that they're kind of interested in, okay? So, but Zillow's application isn't as thorough as the one I use. So I do, so typically if I have the Zillow application, if I really, really like them, if I really they're just checking all the boxes, everything's going great. Sometimes I actually paid, I'll be like, you know what? I'll pay for you already paid for Zillow, I'll pay for this one, but I want you to redo it, just to get them on my application, okay? That's very rare, okay, but it happens. So, all right, so number 1, if they see the place and they like it, the first step to applying for humans is rentspree.com, okay? Anybody familiar with Rentspree? One person? Anybody else? Really? Damn. Stephanie? Okay. This is my favorite thing ever, okay? So they apply on there, it's $30. Okay, so it's I think it's the same as Zillow. It's $30. It's super thorough. Zillow goes back one employer, or one unit, or whatever it does. Rentspree goes back 2 employers, 3 employers. It does the whole thing in a. Actually, you know what? I have another slide. Sorry, I have another slide coming up where I go into detail on the list. So number 1, Rentspree for humans. Okay. Number 2 is PetScreening.com for all the animals. Okay, and I typically, when I say animal, dog or cats, I ask people if to disclose them if they have reptiles or hamsters or whatever, but I don't make them do it for the pet app. I don't consider a hamster a pet that I'm worried about, unless somebody else has had problems with I don't know, out of control mating hamsters or something,
They do chew wires.
What's that? They chew wires? Yeah. Yeah, we did have guinea pigs as a kid, and that got a little out of hand real quick. But
As long as you don't have 2, you're all right.
as long as you don't have 2, there you go. Yeah, right on. So anyway, so pet screening for dogs and cats for the most part. Doesn't matter whether they have one or not. Okay, I'm going to go into that a little bit more. Third step is payscore.com. Okay, this is income verification. This is the final step. This is the gatekeep. Okay, This is like the pearly gates. They pass this one, they're in, they get the keys. They don't pass it, they don't get it. Okay? We'll go into this a little bit more too. All right, so for rentspree.com, okay, it's a lot more thorough than Zillow. It does a full background, credit, and eviction check. Okay, so it's all three. Zillow's getting really weird about what they like will tell you and won't tell you, and you can't even actually put they don't let you put, because for those of you who don't know, there's a new law that got passed where you can't put in your rental listing that you don't allow anybody with felonies anymore. Okay, so you got to be a little bit more creative with that. And Zillow will flag you if it sees the word felony and won't let you list your thing. So Zillow's getting a little nanny-ish to me personally. So RentSpree doesn't do this, but they do a full background. The credit check that they give you is a lot more thorough than Zillow. You can it gives them all their. It doesn't just give you the score and then like the top factors or whatever. It gives you the whole credit report. Okay. So yes, Michelle.
And why do you even allow them to apply on Zillow?
Why do I even allow them to apply on Zillow? That's a good question. I think I just found that, I don't know. That's a really good question. I really never thought of it.
I think if I applied on Zillow and paid for that, and then you asked me to pay again, that would piss me off.
Well, and that's why if the people are annoyed,
Right.
see, most of the time what I've noticed though now is that most of the people aren't just applying to my house. So when I ask them to go actually do my application, they're not that annoyed because they didn't really just apply to my house. They probably applied to 15 other houses
Right.
with it.
Okay.
And probably the answer to your question is that I would rather still have that information up front.
Well,
If they're willing to give it to me,
Yeah.
then I'd rather just know, because a lot of people will say, oh yeah, I think my credit score is about a 730 or a 620 or whatever. Really, they think it's a 630, really it's a 590, or 610 or whatever. So if they're willingly gonna just apply and I can pre-screen people off the information that they're willingly giving me, I don't think that's a bad thing.
And you probably get more, if, like you said, if they can apply once and then
Yeah.
apply to 30 houses, you probably get more traffic that way.
Yeah, absolutely,
That answers it.
absolutely.
So for each of those websites, you had to apply, you had to pay to apply?
Each of those websites, yes.
Pay websites
Yes.
there, so
Yep.
I would have to.
Yep, so you gotta pay, so I have a 3-step, as I explain to people, I have a 3-step application process, okay? You go rentspree.com for humans, petscreening.com for pets, and then the income verification is a final check that protects me against fraud and protects you, resident, against your privacy, okay? I don't have to go through your bank statements, I'm gonna go into that, that's coming on the slide, okay?
But
Just bear with me for a second.
Your house is pretty much $100.
No, it's like, I think it's like 55. 55, something like that. I said, yes. Hang on, sorry, he's got the mic.
We take Zillow applications. It's just an easy way to see the credit score and get an idea if you want to proceed.
Pretty much.
And then we charge $35, and we do go through the credit, and also my wife goes through the credit, bank statements, et cetera, if we need to. If they don't have sufficient income, because they have money in the bank, we may go, oh, okay, you have money. Can we try to have a holistic view?
Yeah. Yep. And the holistic view is becoming harder now because whereas I used to make, possibly exceptions where I would, maybe their income wasn't quite there, but they had fantastic credit, I'd let them put down an extra deposit. But you can't do that in California anymore. So as of July. So right now you can still do it, but yes, sir.
What information do you get with the pet screening?
We're gonna get that. That's the next slide. Good question though. Anybody else on RentSpree specifically? Evan?
No, I was just going to say one thing with income verification. I've noticed a lot more people that have multiple jobs, a lot of gigs. So some of them do not have regular jobs, but we've had some good tenants that I've gone through their 5 gig jobs that they do, and they make plenty of money, and they're good tenants, but no one else will look at them because they make $900 from here, $1,200 from here, $1,400 from here, and no paycheck stubs, but they deposit everything.
Yep.
So anyway.
Good point. Yeah, we're gonna go through that. All right. Also, with so it's RentSpree gets a pro version. It's $10 a month. Okay, and you can. The great thing is, hopefully they're not watching this, but you can if you don't have constant listings, you can pay the $10 for the month that you're doing it, and then you can cancel, and then you can do the 10 month the next time. So, But it's $10 a month, and you can do things like you can request all the documents, the extra documents, so their driver's license, their pay stubs, their W-2, whatever you want, what's legal for you to request. You can request it in the app, and the app will make sure that they turn it in and it'll let you know. So it keeps everything all in one file, which is pretty nice. And it also does reference checks, okay? And this is up to you. I pretty much go by this ref check, okay? So it sends them an email, whoever they put in for their contact information, and I make sure that it lines up with the company. It's going, if they worked for Stater Brothers, it's going to a Stater Brothers email, not, somebody's Gmail. That kind of stuff. So, but it will send them an email, it'll verify that their dates and what they made, if it's to a landlord or a previous landlord or roommate or whatever. It'll verify their time that they lived there and the rent that they paid. And again, this goes to their email, and then they get emailed back from that email address. So it's pretty hard to fake. That's why if I see it going to a Gmail, I'll ask them to correct it, like with an actual corporate email. But for the most part, I don't call people's references anymore. I let the system do it. Okay, and the only reason I do that is because of the rent income verification that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. Okay, before I'd had the income verification, absolutely I was calling everybody's references. Okay, but it's really hard to fake. It's almost impossible to fake this income verification. Okay, and just by the numbers, if their credit's there, they meet they check all the boxes, everything's like that. They paid the fees, which are higher than normal. They really want to live there. Okay, and by the time they get to the end, if they fake the reference, it's going to be really hard to fake anything else, okay? And then income estimates also, which is it basically gives you, I don't know if this thing's all that accurate, but it's nice. It's nice to know. It'll just, if they put on their application that they make $5,000 a month, RentSpree will look at their credit report and basically give you an evaluation of, and other factors. I don't know what the other factors are, but they have stuff that they can't show you, but they can basically say, yeah, this person makes $5,000 a month, or they're probably a little bit lower than that, maybe around $3,000. But it'll give you an opinion, so you're just something to be aware of. Like I said, it's not. I don't know if it's 100% accurate, but it's just more data. You want data, okay? You want to know the more information. Information's power, right? So, all right, pet screening. Who uses pet screening currently? Andy. Anybody else? Have you heard of pet screening?
It's free.
Guys, this thing's gold. If you're already a housing provider and you're not using this, start immediately, okay? It's free for you. It's absolutely free, okay? And it's free for the residents that don't have pets, okay? So there's a couple things here. It's an application for pets, okay? And they have to, somebody have a question?
I was just going to say, I just have a former tenant who is applying somewhere that uses RentSpree, and I hadn't heard of it until today anyway, so they're asking for my verification that they were a good tenant from before.
Oh,
I just thought I'd share. That was the first,
There you go.
first for me, so.
Yeah, it makes it easy, and if there's a discrepancy, then I follow up. Every once in a while there will be, it'll pop up red, where it says the rent that they paid was off, or the dates were a little bit off, and I'll ask them about it. If it's something like, oh yeah, I forgot that it was this, again, if they're forthcoming about it, depends, but for the most part they're okay. And again, towards the end, it's all of this stuff, okay? It's not just the app, okay? So no pet. If they don't have a pet, okay, it's free for them. They don't have to pay anything if they don't have a pet, okay? All it's doing is affirming that they don't have a pet, because this is going to protect you later when they try and sneak a pet in, or if they try and sneak a pet in. Yes, Lee?
So you send everyone to pet screening, and if they don't have a pet, they just kind of check the box.
There's 3 options on pet screening, okay? A no pet, a pet, or a service or emotional support dog or animal. Okay, there's 3 options. They have to, every applicant has to fill out pet screening, okay? Because if they don't have a pet, they're affirming the pet policy, and they're affirming not only the pet policy, but that if they violate the pet policy, it's a $1,000 fine instantly. And if I find out about it after they've left or any time during the lease, if they're not honest about it, it's a $1,000 fine, and it's the retroactive pet administration fee all the way back to move-in. Okay? Move-in. Not when I catch the animal, move-in. So if they've lived there for a year and they had a pet for the last month, I don't care. They pay it for the entire year. from when they moved in. Okay? When I say stern on my pet policy, I am dead serious about this. I've nailed 2 tenants that moved out with it later. Okay? Yes, sir.
Do you have, where you maybe have them initial in
Yes.
the area?
So not only do they affirm it when they go and fill out the application, they also sign again, and as part of the lease up, which I'll go into, as part of the lease up, I print their affirmation out and I make them sign it again. Okay? And then in the rent policy and the actual lease, when it has the pet policy again, guess what they do? They sign it again and initial right next to it. 3 times. Okay? You sneak a dog into my house, there's no way you didn't know. Okay? It's very clear. Okay? Pet's full profile with so it also gives us paw score. Okay? So that's the other reason. So what that does, that paw score up in the right corner, okay, they call it the paw score, okay, it's 1 to 5. You set what you want. So when they apply with this animal, okay, if it's a big 6-month-old husky that hasn't been vaccinated, it's probably getting a 1. Okay? If it's a Chihuahua that's been around a while, or it's 5, 10 years old, whatever, house trained, has all its vaccinations, everything. They gotta put everything in here. Vaccinations, their vet, how old it is, date of birth, everything. It's like a full application. And the people that don't fill this out all the way, guess what? They don't get to rent the house.
They weed themselves out.
Yeah, exactly. They weed themselves out. You are trying to get people to weed themselves out, okay, so that you don't have to. All right? So it gives them a PAW score. That PAW score sets what the pet administration fee is. Okay? 1 is $60. It's like a reverse scale. 1's the worst. Okay, that one's $60 a month. 5's $20 a month. Okay? And it's just a system that sets it. So it gets them, you want to pay less? You want to pay $20 a month? Make sure you get all the information in there. And that they're vaccinated. I require them to be fixed. There's no unaltered animals allowed in my houses. Okay, I don't need baby dogs or cats running around. All right. And assistant service animals, it verifies it. Okay, they will literally verify it. They will call the whatever information they're putting in there for their service, whatever the information is. Okay, their doctor, their psychiatrist, whatever. The reason that they have emotional support or service animal, okay, they put that information in there, and that company verifies that information. Okay, so what does this do? Andy? Weeds them out. If you are trying to fake a service animal, you think you're going to put it into this system? Probably not. You're probably not going to waste it. It doesn't charge, also for service animals, it doesn't charge people. Okay? But those internet certificates that say, you're, whatever, is it a service dog? It's not going to pass. Okay? Again, if you are a housing provider and you're not using this already, you need to start immediately. This will save you all kinds of trouble with pets. Okay? Yes, Ray?
The internet certificates are still kind of good, but this service sounds like it reduces your potential liability in that area.
As far as I know, this system throws out the
Emotional
internet
support
certificates.
animals are different than service. So
Yeah, but they both need to be from a health provider.
actually, service animals that don't need to be from a health provider. And that's an entirely different area. So there's no paperwork on that. Emotional support animals,
As far as I understand it, for as a house, so there's the ASA, the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. Okay,
Right.
that defines what a service animal is and what you can ask about a service animal, all that kind of
True,
stuff.
the 3 questions.
Then there's HUD. Okay, and the HUD regulations for service animals is that, as far as I understand it, that that you as a housing provider can request that they have proof that they are in need of a service or an emotional support animal from a qualified physician.
Yeah, and then there's
Yeah.
emotional
In the
support
state of
animals,
California.
which have a different thing within the state of California with our amazing thing,
Yeah.
which one of the big housing providers got into a major lawsuit on trying to prove.
And that may be true, but here's the thing.
No, that's what I'm saying. This helps you by reducing that liability.
Exactly. That's my point. So, thank you. Sorry, I thought you were, yeah. So, what this does, again, if somebody's really rolling the dice, whether they have an emotional support animal or not, they're most likely not going to mess with a system that's verifying. They're just going to walk away and go to the next house. Okay? I'm not saying they're going to do it, 100% of them are. I'm just saying that, again, you're trying to weed people out. Okay? You're trying to weed the people out that are faking it. Okay? It's not going to work every time. You're still going to get the people that are going to roll the dice. Okay? But you're just trying to weed it out. Okay? Rodolfo, do you have a question?
So this is on, So, Rich, this is a way more for you to find the honest tenants, right? The people
Exactly.
that are willing to disclose the most information
Exactly.
that you request, right?
Yep. That I'm reasonably requesting. I want to see proof of everything. I'm reasonably requesting all of this information. Okay. And I'm not putting it behind some insane paywall where it's $300 to apply or anything like that. It is a normal application fee. Okay. And if it's legit, they don't even have to charge for it. They don't have to pay for it. It's free. Okay. Any more questions on pet screening? Okay. All right. The final one, pay score. Okay. This is the income verification. Again, this is what I've used it used to be called theclosingdocs.com. They changed it to payscore.com about a year ago. And what this does is, this is how I present it, okay? And I used to have people kind of push back on this. I really don't anymore. I think it's becoming a lot more common. So I say basically the third step, the third and final check. So when they fill out pet screening and they fill out rent spree, and I conditionally approve them, okay? They're conditionally approved at that point. They pass that check, they're conditionally approved. The final step, I don't make it part of the actual application that I put in the description. I tell them as we're going through this. This is the final step, and this is basically the gatekeep step that I get to decide who gets it. So the final step is if they pass the 1 and 2, they get this one, okay? And I tell them this one thing. I say, it protects me against fraud, and it protects your privacy that I don't have to sit here and go through your bank statements because I don't want to see what you spend your money on. Okay? And they usually laugh. None of you laughed. I guess you didn't think it was funny. But yes, sir.
I think you misspoke when you said this is your final stop, because they got to make it through the lease up.
Sorry. Yes, true. But as far as the application process, it's the final step of the application process. Okay? And all this does, guys, they go on payscore.com, they make an account, they log in with, who's logged in with like Stripe to like do a transfer or something else, okay? Or Clover or whatever these other ones are right now. It's the same exact thing, okay? They log in, they put in their bank information, it sends me a report that says, basically it shows them their deposits, okay? It doesn't show me their entire history from going back, I don't have to go through 12 months of bank statements. I don't have to go through anything. I literally take 5 minutes or less to fill out this thing. You put in their information, it sends them the report, they pay for it. It's $10, okay? It's the final check, it's $10. It sends you a report, it tells you what, and it basically gives you that. Okay, you set your income multiplier, it tells you if they're above it or below it, or they're close. Okay, so if your income multiplier is 2.5 times or 3 times, whatever, you put it on there, it tells you, you can look at the report, it gives you deposits, basically average deposits going back. It'll go back a year. If the account's newer, sometimes it won't go back the full year. But it gives you a full year of their deposits, their 3-month average, their 6-month average, and their 12-month total. Okay? Puts it all in there for you, and then you can decide if it matches what they're saying. So if they have pay stubs, or they're claiming they make $2,500 a week, or $2,500 every 2 weeks, whatever, okay? You see that direct deposit, when they sent you a pay stub, and it said 2568.17 went into their account, and you see those paychecks hitting their account every 2 weeks, they're gold. Okay? They're in. Like that's pretty much it. Now, what Evan was talking about, people that have multiple jobs, people that are self-employed, you got to look a little bit closer. Okay? Especially the people that are self-employed, because they'll have a lot of deposits. Sometimes they're commingling business funds and personal funds, and that one you got to, most of the time with those, I do require a separate, because it's so tough to tell which was business and which was personal, I'll require a second deposit for that. Starting in July, I don't know what I'll do because we can't do that anymore. So, I don't know. Yes, Ray?
So are you getting paycheck stubs then, or are you just using this?
I asked for like their most recent 2 pay stubs so that I can double check it against this. Okay, that the companies match up. I mean, it gives you the deposits, the amount, and where it came from. Okay, it just doesn't show you any of the spending on the account. And it gives you balances as well. So that's another thing. So if you see the balances, maybe they, we just looked at one. We just had an applicant that, they were like barely there on everything. Okay, and then they did this income verification, and it matched up, but it showed their 2 accounts. They only had like $250 in the account, and we were like, "Hey man, you passed everything, like." But we're a little concerned, you know, like that it's just that we don't see any money. Like how you planning on making a, you know, how you gonna make a deposit? And they said, don't worry about it, you know. And we're like kind of going back and forth because it was a place that had been vacant for a long time, and you know, we ended up approving him, but then he never made a deposit. So I think he weeded himself out. Yes, Roddy.
Does this show their monthly expenses like car notes,
It
child
doesn't show
support?
any expenses.
Okay.
It's only income.
Do you have
Okay.
any website that shows their actual expenses?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Right. So,
And that's part of the pitch to people too. Is like I don't want to know. I don't really want to know.
right. But
You
like,
know.
okay.
I don't like when I used to look through people's bank statements and they're like, you know, you see like OnlyFans and like some other stuff. I'm just like,
Yeah,
they're
no,
barely
I-
skating by. I'm like, dude, we need to like have like a life talk here. Like I know it's
Right.
not my job, but
Yeah, like
you know.
lifestyle expenses, right? No,
Yeah.
I'm the same way because I have properties out in Ohio, so I'll just look at their bank statements and their income. But so you're saying at this point in time, there's no like legit way to see how many actual monthly expenses someone has, right?
So the reason I don't worry about that too much is it's because I do want to see that they have something in like their accounts. Okay, if they're just, you know, balls to the wall spending every dime they have, it's going to be a question.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't worry about it either.
You know, but they're not qualifying for a mortgage here.
yeah,
I mean, I realize that is a rent, but especially if they have, if you know, the stuff checks out of the rent that they have been paying, and they've already been making, you know, either an equal or maybe more expensive rent payment.
Yeah,
And that's
I'm-
part of the verification process. But no, to answer your question, no, I'm not aware of anything that shows you all of their expenses either.
yeah, me too. I'm the same way. Like as long as they've been paying their previous rent and their previous landlord say they've been paying, obviously these people know how to get by and they can, you know, suffice. So
Yeah.
thank you, Rich.
Any questions?
Yes, here.
Yeah.
Two questions. The first question is, if it's a couple, does this process allow them
Yes.
to go in and...
Yeah, it links it.
Okay.
So the question was if there's a couple, can they apply together? Yes. Same with Rent Spree. That's another thing I like about Rent Spree. Zillow, for whatever reason, Zillow is like terrible at keeping people's applications. I always, if it's a couple applying, it's like 2 times out of 10 that they'll actually do it right and submit an application that's like them joint. Most of the time it's like a separate one for her and a separate one for him or whatever. It's really annoying. But for Rent Spree, it'll keep them combined, and then for Pay Score, yes, it'll keep them combined. So you can see the whole picture of the two of them.
Question number 2 for, what are they called? People that have assistant on rent, what are they
Rent
called?
assistance, yeah?
What do they call it?
Like Section 8?
Section 8.
Yeah,
Does this take into account...
as long as it goes into a bank account.
Their portion is only their portion?
Well, no, so it has to hit their account. So any portion that's going to the landlord, like, you know, so the portion that goes to them or whatever, however it works, I don't have Section 8 tenants, so I couldn't tell you. But if anything that hits their account goes on this report. If it doesn't, if they're living by cash and they don't like bank accounts and, you know, they're weary of banks and all those excuses, I don't rent to them. Sorry.
So
Like,
I
it's just,
don't-
I can't verify it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't have Section 8 people, but I'm under the impression that for them, it's 3 times the amount of their portion, and the Section 8 amount goes directly to you. So anybody else who
Yeah,
has...
so if that was the case,
But that wouldn't show that because it's
It
an
wouldn't-
expense.
yeah.
He's talking about the income. This just focuses on the income
the
and not the
individual.
expense.
yeah, and also, but the portion that goes to the landlord would show, that's the verification for the landlord that you'd be looking at. That's not their income verification, because the money never hit their account.
See,
Okay, that would probably be a different check. Andy, you've done Section 8?
well, not anymore. I have one left, and she's been good. But since they changed the rule to where it's not, you have 3 times the rent, and maybe I let it slide down to 2.5 times the rent because I'm getting a big chunk from the gov.
Yeah,
Now they want to make, you know, if your thing is 3 times the rent, then they make 3 times their rent. Well, that means they can't afford to put gas in the lawnmower to mow my lawn. So they just don't qualify. So I took all the screens off my houses. They're available for Section 8, but they won't pass.
nice. All right,
Of course, nobody opens a window where I live either, so.
I wouldn't either, man. You'd like burn to death. All right, so again, it protects you from fraud. Okay, there's no way to fake this. Okay, they can't doctor their statements. They can't Photoshop anything. They can't get a fake bank account. You know, like it's pretty, you know, it's pretty tough to fake the bank statements and the income. Like if you figure that one out, they're probably going for something a lot bigger than me. Okay, like that's like fraud level, like, you know, what's that movie, Catch Me If You Can kind of stuff? Like, they're just not trying to rent my house, okay? What's that? Yeah, exactly. So, and then again, it protects their privacy, okay? That's a big one. Like, if you ever get pushback, like, look, man, I don't want to see what you spend your money on, okay? Like, simple as that. I don't want to go, and I don't have time to go through 12 months of your bank statements on every single thing you spent money on. I just don't want to do it, man. And if they pass, if they put, every once in a while, they'll get pushback. I don't trust it. I don't put my name. Fine. Don't rent from me. That's it. That's it. You're under no obligation to make exceptions for anybody. Okay? In fact, the more exceptions, you really, when it comes down to like discrimination laws and stuff like that, especially here in California, you don't want to make exceptions for anybody because you want to be able to prove that you have a system that you apply equally to everybody. Okay? Regardless of whatever, okay? So that as long as you're applying that equally and you're giving everybody, you have a reasonable expectation, reasonable application, reasonable fees, that kind of stuff, okay? Again, you're filtering out the people that are not going to pass, okay? And then the application is complete when all of those things are done, okay? So remember, what was the first rule? You have to, the first qualified applicant that does the full application. Okay? So they got to get all the way through to the income verification. Okay? And your job is to filter, is to set it up so that they naturally filter themselves out. Okay?
Once again, their application process is not complete until they have in their hot little fingers a signed lease. Because I have packed everything up across the table 60 minutes into my normal 90-minute lease up and said, I'm sorry, we're not going to work well together. Packed all the leases up and left.
What caused you to do that?
They said they were going to shop for a house. They wanted to buy a house in a year.
Oh, there you go.
And I only rent to people who promise to die in my houses.
Fair enough. We all have our requirements. Okay. Now, so the next step before I go to a lease up, yes, sir.
Do you in California have the opportunity to refuse to a qualified tenant based on whatever you think you would like?
Technically, no.
One? Okay, so yeah, because I'm sure you.
Technically, no. So that's so what I'm getting at here, guys. Technically, you are supposed to. What Andy said. It's technically, as I understand it, maybe there's some gray area there, but technically, you are supposed to accept the first qualified applicant. Okay. So again, set your system who completes the application. I don't know the technicality on the lease being part of the application. But
does anyone verify this timing?
I'm not sure. But what I can tell is the goal here is to people filter themselves out. Okay, the key word, themselves out. Not you filtering. They're filtering themselves out. Okay? Evan.
Yeah, what it is there's no tenant shopping in California is what it is. It is a first qualified applicant that completes everything. Yes, that's
Exactly.
the key. So just keep that
Okay.
in mind. And remember this, there are professional tenant applicants that are hired by attorneys,
To catch
et cetera.
you.
They'll catch you. They are looking for you. And this first violation, it's a housing violation. They'll go right up to you and say, you may or may not have done anything wrong, but it's a housing violation, $6,000 or we go away.
Yep.
And then you call your attorney and find out it will cost $6,000 to start to defend it, and you're now
Yep.
stuck. So
Yep. So again, make sure you are applying the same things to everybody so that they weed themselves out. Okay? All right, accepting an applicant. Okay, so I do this a little differently than some people. Basically, if it all checks out, I tell them, okay, you passed, everything's ready to go. I set up a time to sign the lease, and I take a deposit up front immediately. Okay? I request that via Zelle or Venmo, and I do not do the lease up. I don't even write the paperwork up unless I get that deposit. Okay? And occasionally I get pushback on that. I usually do not. I usually don't get any pushback on that because by that time, if they have gone through the process, they've seen me open the keys, they see me open I have the keys, I either managing the place or own it or whatever. They've gone through all the rigmarole with the applications and stuff. I would ask them to dot every I, cross every T. They know it's real. Okay, I'm not just showing them the door and saying, "Here you go, give me a deposit," before you even sign the lease. Okay, this is very different. So act professional when you're doing all this, and people will be less likely to question you on something like this. Okay, every once in a while, I put in there. You probably can't read that. So I said, every once in a while, I get people pushing back. All I say, and again, you treat everybody the same, okay? He said, okay, I said, I need a deposit. As soon as I get that in, I'll pull it off the market, and we can set a time to go out and sign the lease. He said, okay, that sounds great. My only reservation is that I don't feel comfortable sending a deposit without having a lease written up and signed by both of us. Anybody share that sentiment? It's reasonable, right? I'm not saying it's unreasonable. It's just not the way I do it, okay? Because I am not going to spend the time writing up the entire lease if I don't know they're serious, okay? It takes me an hour or so to write up a lease and print it out, and which doesn't sound like a lot of time, but I don't have a lot of free time to be writing up leases for people that aren't serious, okay? So, and especially, again, people weeding themselves out. If you got 3 applicants that have all gone through the process, they all pass their income verification, and you like all of them, guess who's going to get it? The one that gets their deposit in the fastest. Because that guy's ready, and that's the guy I want, okay?
What's your response?
My response to him after that is, I can understand the reservation, but that's the process, keywords here, that I do with everyone. I treat everyone the same. Nobody gets an exception on that. Yep.
You should change your pronoun. No, I'm not kidding. It should always be we. Don't give yourself that much power.
We can understand the reservation?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you meant the other pronoun. Sorry. All right, we can understand the reservation, but the process is that we do it with everyone. Okay? So everybody gets treated the same. You don't want to put a deposit in? Fine, I'll go to the next applicant. And then what did he say right after that? I said, place is yours if you want it to move forward, but if you don't, no worries, just let me know by tomorrow so I can get back to the others that want it. Okay? What was the next response? There's not even a timestamp on there because it was pretty much instant. He said, all right, the deposit has been sent. So he wasn't that concerned. Okay?
Rich?
Yes.
Just checking on, you keep saying deposit, but up here you say deposit and first month's rent.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, the first month deposit. I just call it like the move-in deposit. I know I'm probably screwing that up on a technicality, but that's just what I call it. And it is the first month rent, the first month plus the security deposit. So security deposit's always equal to the first month rent unless I'm asking for more pets or extra security. What's up, Tommy?
Are you doing this whole process, or are you kind of jumping in when it comes to kind of interviewing them on site?
Me personally?
Yeah, are you personally?
I'm doing all this.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the time frame you think you put
I've done this as fast as a few days to a couple weeks. It really just depends on most of the time once they see it, it's within a few days. If I'm not hearing back from them, that's part of the weeding things out. I don't chase people. If I'm chasing you to fill out an app or chasing you to get your deposit in, what am I going to be chasing you for you later? The rent. The weeds. The dogs, the unauthorized pets, all that stuff. It's all science. And your job as a hiring manager of residents is that you want to filter out as much as you can so that you don't have to deal with these problems later. Again, it's not perfect. It's still going to happen. But you're trying to get ahead of all this stuff. Okay? So when it does happen, you can show that you did it by the book. Yes, sir.
Sorry, I missed it early on in the talk. At what point do you actually spend the time to meet them at the property so they can see it?
As soon as I know that they meet they meet the minimum requirements on credit and income.
So after they do the online verification, or just after you've asked
Way
them
before
that
that.
initial? So after you've now asked them the initial question, what is your credit score? What is your
I call it pre-screening. So
that pre-screening.
So pre-screen, like when they first ask you about the property, that's when I ask them that question. I don't show it to anybody that I don't know that they at least meet the credit or income requirements. Period. Yeah. So, okay. So I do that, boom, get a deposit, then I set time for lease up, and I'm just going to run through the lease up pretty quick here. I'm running out of time. So, as far as lease up, so I let them know ahead of time that it's going to be a 1 to 2 hour process. Okay, this is not something, I do not send it over email. I do not mail it to them. I do not let anybody even look at my lease until they're in front of me. Okay, I get pushback on that every once in a while. If I do, guess what? You weed yourself out. Exactly. Okay? Because I don't need them, nitpicking all of it, or, I don't agree to this, I don't agree to that, fine, don't rent the place. Simple as that. Okay, so I generally meet them at a cafe. I used to do something that, from my time in short-term rentals where I would leave gifts for short-term rental guests, and I was like, well, why don't I do this for my long-term people? So I started leaving like a little gift basket in the fridge, or, somebody had a kid moving in and I got them like a little stuffed elephant, stuff like that. You want to be human, start off on a good foot kind of thing. And then the market up in Crestline that I used to buy all that stuff from, the roof collapsed in the storm last year. So there's really no other place in town that has gifts like that. So I just started meeting people for lunch. I used to do the lease up in the house itself. And I stopped doing that because it was just uncomfortable to stand there for an hour and a half with no furniture or anything like that. And you could tell people were visibly by the time you got the end of it. So I just say, hey, let's meet up at the cafe. It's one of the few cafes up there, restaurant you like, and buy them lunch. It's not a big deal, guys. It's $20, it sets you off on the right foot. What's that?
25 right now.
25, 30. You don't have to eat. But a lot of people don't even eat. They're like, no, it's fine. They feel weird, and I'll force fries. Just have some fries. It's a business expense, exactly, and it's just a good precedent to set with people that, hey man, I'm a real person, share a meal with me, and let's go over this thing, okay? Right.
When do you do the move-in checklist then?
That's all part of the lease up.
But you mean at the cafe, not the house?
As far as what checklist?
Basically going through all the windows work, all the other checklist of how the house is.
I don't
or
do
they
that.
do it by themselves?
I do that by myself. So that's the MIMO form. So, all right, so I go section by section. As far as the lease, I go section by section. I don't read line by line, okay? I'm not going some of the stuff is legalese that's in there, but the important stuff, I do go line by line. When I'm in the rules and regulations section, we're gonna go over all 17, 18 rules or whatever it is and go down it. When we're going over each addendum, whether it's the snow removal, internet addendum, whatever, we're going through each one. The pet addendum, we're going over that $1,000 fine. We're going over, whatever. Yes?
I was going to say, when we go through our leases, we take the same time, about an hour, and then after the end of it, there is one sheet that sums it all up again, and it hits all the points again, of just a short version. It's kind of like the 10 Commandments almost, if you think of it that way. But I was going to say one thing is that if you come across a tenant, remember, if an applicant, the ones that are in a hurry or trying to rush you or trying to, et cetera, and they need to move now, et cetera, 99.99% of the time, you don't want them. It's and if the house burned down yesterday, that's one thing, but most of those are the ones you want to stay away from.
Yeah.
And another little tip that I've done is that when I have talked to somebody and I'm at that point that we're going to show them the place, I will let them know that, well, if you go through you see it, you like it, and you get, you go through the application process, it's good, I'm going to immediately ask for a $500 deposit until we sign. Is that a problem? And if they say then that's a problem, I already know there'll be a problem. If they don't have $500 at that moment, if they go, well, I have to wait to the first, well, now you know. Okay, so just some thoughts.
Yep, and I honestly just take that a step further. I want the whole thing. And I don't ask them if it's a problem, okay? I just flat out. If it's a problem, I respect the process, but it's not. I think it's unnecessary. It's just you ask for the whole thing up front. If they don't get it to you, or you just move on. I know you say that's further back but then if you set that up, it kind of ruins the later of asking for the whole thing. So.
Down to if you say I'm going to want this, and they don't say it's a way to ask if it's a problem. Even if you said I want the full amount, and they say, so ask is that a problem?
Yeah.
So if they say yes, then you already know.
Right on.
Because if you just say it and they don't say anything, then you still don't know.
Yeah.
I want $1 million in a week, and they don't say anything. So is that a problem?
We got Andy or Patrick? What's up?
Do you tell them that you're the homeowner, or do you do the whole I'm the?
Nope, I say I'm the property manager.
Okay.
Yep.
So I have two questions.
Mhm.
One is because
believe it or not, I still use a paper application that they pick up inside the house when they're doing their self-showing.
Yeah, I'd rather die, but go ahead.
Yeah, I understand. and the other thing is that I haven't rented anything in over 3 years because I'm pretty good at picking my tenants, and I'm not buying at this point in my career. Can you add additional trick questions like I have in my application into that electronic fancy hoo-ha online thing? Like, can we ask them to give us their attorney's name and contact information?
I don't think so. That's a good question, but I don't think there's anything in there that lets you add.
See, I like my
any type
paper
of,
apps.
and there's probably a reason for that, but
Nothing wrong with asking. We all know what to do when they fill it out.
yeah. Enlighten us. So you ask, so you put trick questions in your lease.
My
as such-
application.
in your application, such as asking what their attorney's name and number is.
Yeah, I want their contact information for their attorney.
So if they have one, I'm assuming you're not moving forward. If they
Then I'm
don't-
not moving forward.
And if they don't have one, you're safe.
If you have a relationship with attorney, you don't meet my qualifications. You like being in front of a man in a black dress, you and I are not going to get along.
Fair enough. I have no idea on the legality of that. So
I have a question. I looked it up regarding the emotional support
Yep.
animal. And it said that the emotional support animal and or the service animal, you're not required to pay a deposit.
that's true.
Those types of animals.
Yeah, that's true.
You kind of get around it by requiring
No, I don't get it.
insurance.
No, I don't require. No. So sorry, that wasn't. Sorry, good question. Sorry, that wasn't clear. Okay, emotional support, service animals, legally like actual real, whatever, emotional support service, whatever.
Right.
You cannot ask for a deposit. You cannot ask for pet administration fee, and you cannot ask for additional insurance. Okay, so all that gets wiped out.
Dave Tilney has a wonderful analogy for everyone to understand.
Yep.
A service animal is just like a wheelchair. And wheelchairs do damage to houses. Ask me how I know. But it's a wheelchair. So it's a four-legged wheelchair, and you cannot charge a wheelchair deposit.
Yep.
So just understand that a genuine service animal it's a piece of medical equipment.
Exactly.
That's all it is. It just
Exactly.
has a
It's
tail.
no longer an animal at that point, really. I mean, it is, but in the eyes of the law, it's what you're saying. It's a medical device, really. So all that gets wiped out. But the point is of all of this is that people that have legitimate service animals or emotional support animals will have no problem filling this out. Okay? The people that don't are going to think twice about having somebody else looking at it as their application, and most likely they're going to weed themselves out. That's the only point. Okay? So I don't really care what the caveats are to it. Is that simple fact that people that are faking it are more likely to not go through the whole application because they know I'm being thorough. Okay? The people that are legitimate, they're going to go through it. Yes.
But they are responsible for the damage that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. You just can't ask for additional pet deposits because they're not pets. Okay? Even though it's petscreening.com and we're talking about it as pets. Service animals are not pets at that point. They're legal,
Right, I get the service animal part. It's the emotional part I always have.
they fall under this, for HUD and stuff, it basically falls under the same thing. Okay? You have the mic.
Yeah. With emotional support animals, which are basically the same thing as a service animal, just you get the fake internet certificate. The thing to keep in mind is they do have to obey all the laws for that city still. So basically, if they're required to be on a leash outside, you can require that. And if they're not, then you're in violation.
Yep.
And same thing with vaccinations too.
Yep. Yeah, you can still require. One question I'm not 100% on is if you can require them to be altered, fixed. I'm pretty sure you can,
I
but
think
don't quote
that
me
gets
on
into
that.
the county city thing.
Yeah.
And if the county city requires it, that's different.
I've never ran into that. So,
Yeah,
but again, guys, I know we can get kind of in the weeds here on service animals and some of these things. Again, I'm going to repeat it one more time. Just that the idea is the people that are faking it are going to stop right there and weed themselves out. Okay? Because they're probably not going to go diving that deep into all this stuff. They might, and they might get through. Okay? And if they do, whatever. That's a different conversation. okay? But the idea is that they're gonna weed themselves out, and the ones that are legit will keep going forward. I can't tell you how many times I've had people show up and say, yeah, I have a service dog. They never apply, okay? They go read that stuff on pet screening, and they're like, oh shit, they're gonna verify it? Well, I don't know if I wanna risk that. It says faking a service animal is a federal offense right on the application, okay? Like, we're trying to weed them out. That's the important thing, okay? All right, I'm gonna finish this lease up real quick, and then we're gonna have time for like a couple more questions. We're running out of time here. Okay, so we go through the lease section by section. I answer any questions like Andy. If they start getting really, really nitpicky on stuff, or they're like, I don't like that, or they want me to cross something out, I write a big cross line right through the signature where they're gonna sign the lease, and I say goodbye. Okay, I'm not that much of a dick about it, but that's basically it, okay? They don't get to cross anything out. If they don't like anything in the lease, they're not willing to abide by anything in the lease, I move on to the next person, okay? Again, they weed themselves out. I didn't choose to not rent to them. They chose to not rent from me because they didn't want to abide by my lease, which is a reasonable lease. Yes. They didn't qualify. Okay? I put a lot of emphasis on things like the pet policy, trash, parking, the stuff that I care about the most, okay? And I tell them point blank, they sign up, especially in the mountains, okay? So I have a full-on parking addendum that is in big bold letters, red letters, do not park anywhere that a spot is not yours, anywhere, for any time, for any reason, period, you've been warned, I'll tell you myself. Okay, and I go through that whole thing, and what always happens? Somebody, I haven't towed anybody yet, but somebody will message me right before the snow is about to come down, like, can we park in so-and-so's spot? No, you can't, but we don't want the car to get hit. No, you can't. Because I don't know if, nobody's lived in that unit for like a month now. They just moved in, and I don't know if they're up the hill. Guess what happened? They were coming up the hill with their chains on, and they wouldn't have had a parking spot. I don't mess around with dogs, I don't mess around with parking. I don't really mess around, period. But those are the two ones that I especially don't mess around on. And the answer is always no. And it's like, dude, I was just asking. I'm like, you don't need to ask. The answer is no. So... And it usually is like, remember when we leased up and I said this was going to happen? I'm like, oh yeah. Yeah. And I told you I was going to be a dick, right? Yeah. You get it now? And they're like, yeah. So, anyways. And then I thoroughly explained the move in, move out form. So as a former tenant that got completely screwed by a landlord once upon a time, I lived in a place in Tempe, Arizona, and moved out, and they threw an $8,000 move-out charge on me. I had pictures of everything. I had receipts of the car. They tried to nail me for the carpet. Tried to nail me for the for one of the windows where literally from the day I moved in, the half of the window that moves, it would fall in if there was a gust of wind, and so that had blown in, and one of the drains had stopped up, so I just stopped cleaning the bathtub because I was like snaking the drain every 3 months, and they wouldn't fix it because the cast iron was all corroded. And anyways, so I had pictures and documentation of everything, and I basically told them to go shove it, and I never heard from them again. Okay, but I mean, they wanted me to. They were charging me like $2,000 for the window. They wanted to charge me for cleaning. They wanted to charge me to put whole new carpet in. Like they wanted to rehab their house on this like thing they were sending me, and I had took the gate in the backyard. Which this one was fair. I altered the place. Okay, I get that, but I made it better. I mean, I took this shitty fence that was all around the backyard that was falling over every time it rained. We cemented the posts, okay, and we put in an RV gate that my dad, who was a licensed contractor, helped me do. We did it right. We cemented all the posts. Blah blah blah. They tried to come after me for $2,000 to take the fence out, or to take the gate out and put the fence back. And now, in their defense, I did alter their property. Okay, and if somebody did that to me, I'd be like, it'd be nice if you'd ask. It'd be nice if you asked, but like, thanks. I just had somebody put in a generator switch into one of my properties, which was actually my nicest property. Now it's nicer. And he asked. I told him I wasn't comfortable with it. He did it anyways. I went over there and he did it right, so I was like, all right, just make sure you paint it. And so now that they're coming up on their lease renewal, I doubt they're gonna leave if the rent goes up a little bit after they just put $3,000 into a generator switch. So that's their call. Yeah, exactly. So anyways, so I thoroughly explained the move in, move out form. Look, guys, I don't try and screw my tenants over, okay? If they leave the house how they found it, they get their full security deposit back. Okay, I'm not trying to keep their security deposit, but I will ding them for every single thing that I find, and I'm going to charge them as if my going rate per hour to fix things, okay, which is not cheap. If the shower curtain's missing, it's not $20, it's $60 at least, okay? If I got to paint something or do anything, like I'm charging full-on rates, okay? If you put stuff up in the walls, that kind of stuff, you need to patch it, and if it's not patched exactly the way and matches the paint exactly the way it was when we moved in, I'm going to get my painter out here, and he's not cheap either. Okay, be upfront with people about this. Okay, don't just hope that they don't send you any pictures so that you can keep their deposit later. Okay, somebody tried to do that to me, they lost. I'm not going to do that to one of my tenants. My tenants that have moved out that I did have to hit for things, they probably disagree, but pictures prove otherwise. So, yes. Do I justify?
Yeah, or do you have to justify?
I don't have to justify, I really don't have to justify anything. You keep receipts of everything that's over, I think it's 150. You're required to keep receipts from. You are allowed to invoice yourself for time spent doing things with under a reasonable amount. You can't go charging $500 an hour for cleaning, but you can charge $100 an hour for 2 people, easily. You know, there was one guy moved out, Caitlin spent like 8 hours, one day. Just scrubbing the floor because this guy had it was disgusting. And he got charged like a $700 cleaning fee because she was there for 2 days. You know, so, yes, Andy.
No, I was going to say, you got 21 days to get a statement.
And you have 21 days, yeah. So, I not part of this presentation, but you have 21 days to get your security deposits back to people. Don't ever let somebody move out and immediately hand them their deposit. Okay, you want to have time to go through that without them breathing over your neck, and you have time legally to do that. Okay, take advantage of it. Okay, because there's going to be things that you don't notice right away. Okay, but again, that's not really part of this. So if you have more questions or comments on that, we're going to skip it, guys. Okay, back to the memo, real quick. Again, just you get the form that they fill out. I tell everybody to fill out the form, no matter what little thing it is. Doesn't matter how small, how big. Put it on there, and take pictures as backup and send them to me. Okay, because I promise, I'm not trying to screw you over. I'm promising you that I'm not going to remember the ding that's in the fridge when you move out 6 years from now. But if there's a ding in that fridge, you're getting charged for it. Okay, if it wasn't there before you moved in. Okay, so just be cool with people about that. More questions about Memo or Lease Up?
I have a lease up trick.
Sure.
Inevitably, there is something that I forget that I have to take and discuss with the prospective tenant. And I'm always just a block away from their house when I call and let them know I'm coming to their house. That little trick has eliminated about half of my prospects. How they treat the house they're in now is how they're going to treat the house you're putting them in 6 months from now.
Absolutely.
So I always stop by.
Absolutely. I don't do that, but I don't disagree with the theory of it.
That's why I don't ever have to change tenants.
I like it. All right. We got about time. We're already out of time, but I'll take 2 questions. Carl?
One of the best things I've heard here is on your first lease, sign a 10-month lease. That way they're not there for a whole year.
That's a really good point. I do it for 11. Okay. So 11 months. So if anybody over 12 months, that's a really good point. Thank you. Anybody over 12 months, they're basically locked in to there's rules in California that you might have to pay them some money to leave after a year. Okay. Again, they got to know that and request it. I don't want to really go into that too much. But so to get around that 11-month lease, you do an 11-month lease initially. After that, so I do mine initially 11 months. Usually people want a year. They sometimes ask, okay, it's a trial period. That's really all it is. Because if you let them go or if you terminate the lease before 11 months, before a year, you're not locked into them. Okay, if over a year, you better be sure that you like them. Okay, they're good employees. Okay, I know you can get around that by also just doing a month to month from the get-go. I could go either way on that. Okay, I know Andy, that's what you do.
Who does a lease bind?
A lease favors the resident, but it also whether people would have to know that, I mean, really, a lease means nothing. I mean, it protects them against you from kicking them out. I mean, it really does. It really does. But I have had people that have moved in for 6 months and then, or, they've been there for like 12 months. We just released. And then like 2 months later, they're like, well, what happens if we leave in like 2 months? We want to buy a house. And I'm like, you have a lease. You technically owe me that money if I'm not able to rent it out. And at least gets them through the next lease. And those are good rents. But at the same time, the longer I've been a housing provider, I don't want people living in my house that don't want to live in it. So that's why from that 11-month lease now, I go straight to a month with everybody. And if they want out at any time, they can. But at least, usually that 11-month makes them feel better. And I did have one resident that pushed back on that month to month. They wanted to release for like another year. They're like, nah, I just like being locked in. So, anyway, one more question. Anybody? Yes.
Earlier, you had mentioned that some of your tenants, they pay utilities, and on some of them you do. Is there a reason, is it a write-off for you on the ones where
I just don't have, the question is some places I pay utilities on, some I don't. The easy answer is the ones that I do pay utilities on, I only have one set of meters. Okay, so there's a different way I could do that if I wanted to. I found that it's easiest for me to do it the way I do it, but there is a way to ratio it to collect. But for me, it's a separate bill that I don't want to deal with, so I just make it. Last question.
So after the 11 months, you just go month to month?
Yep. Yep. So, all right, guys, we're way out of time. I'm sorry if you have more questions, come up and find me. Real quick. I do have a podcast, for those of you who don't know. You can check me out at firechatpodcast.com. You can watch it or come on the show with me. That's my contact information. And a lot of this stuff, I want to reiterate, especially on being a landlord, I learned from David Tilney and John Schaub. For those of you that know David Tilney and you took his class, he's actually a student of John Schaub originally. So if you want to come learn even more of this stuff about how to find these houses, manage these houses, and build wealth one house at a time, he is coming out June 22nd and 23rd, one of my favorite speakers, favorite mentors, and I usually spend about $3,000 to go see him in Florida. So for him to come out here, what we're charging for tickets is a massive deal. Okay, you guys get $130, $140 off being members. You can check him out there, ierac.org/SHAB24, and I forgot to take off that code from last week, so I guess you can have it this week also. So if you haven't yet, you get $50 off extra tonight. I don't think I ever deactivated it either, so go ahead. But other than that, thank you for coming. If you have questions, come up, and appreciate it, guys.